Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Connor Williams, joined by James from the Babbling Blues, and we'll be doing the extra time segment from the West Ham Everton game. Starting off, just give me your thoughts on the game, James.
Another bitterly disappointing away defeat. Top of my head, maybe the most aggrieved I've felt at a defeat away from home this season, maybe just in terms of I felt we were probably decent value for a draw, but just the way it's going for us, we're not getting any luck. When we do get a bit of luck, we undo it with our own sort of poor actions, some really poor decision making in the game, and we've obviously gone on and lost again. The games are really quickly running out, and it doesn't matter how many games in hand we've got, we don't win the games we play at the minute. Another game where I'm not saying it was in the palm of our hands, but another game where we've had a chance to gain a point or two, or a point or three rather, on some of the teams around us, and we've let it slip through our fingers because I think we were decent value for probably a point yesterday.
I agree. I think in terms of how we've played on the road this season, I think there were some positive signs. There was some improvement for us away from home, and like you said, I think mistakes just undid us. It's sort of how it seems to be going for us at the minute, where even if we can sort of play well, we end up an individual mistake or two ends up unraveling all the hard work.
Yeah, exactly. It's again, I said it. I think I was on with Callum, I think maybe, and Paul maybe when I said that most games under Lampard have actually started quite well, and pretty much all. Even the Tottenham game, we started quite well first 5-10 minutes. And again, I think we started all right against West Ham, but it's just it's stuff. There's stuff that's out of the manager's hands in terms of Van der Beek getting injured. Holgate comes in, gives away the free kick for the first goal. And obviously he goes on to score a deflected equaliser, but Michael Keane then gets sent off for another ridiculous tackle, and that's him, Kenny, and Alan. Whilst I don't think Alan should have been sent off, or at least should have been rescinded. Kenny and Keane certainly made stupid decisions. Players who aren't good enough to play for Everton, just making errors. Alex Iwobi actually had a decent game, giving the ball away under absolutely no pressure, and one pass and the throw-on goal. It's just nowhere near good enough. There's no cohesion there. There's huge holes, and we're just shooting ourselves in the foot constantly, aren't we? Like, it's super frustrating. As I said, I think Lampard's perfect, but he must be tearing what little hair he's already got left out, because we are making it so much harder for him when we don't need to be. We're giving teams goals, and you just can't afford to do that. And that's where I think teams like Watford have been struggling. That's why they're not good enough playing the Premier League, because they give teams goals constantly. But teams like Burnley don't really do that. Teams like Burnley are often really solid, and when they concede, it has to be worked quite well, and that's when the goal goes in. So that's where I just think at the minute they've got a bit of an edge on us.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of people saying as well that as well as us starting well, and the improvements being there, West Ham weren't all at the races. They weren't. Obviously they weren't awful, and they probably did deserve the win, but they weren't. I don't think it was as much them outplaying us as fans first initially worried. I admit I came on with James for the preview, and I thought they'd take more advantage of us than that. I thought all their strong areas were our weak areas in terms of set pieces. Obviously, the free kick went in, but that's sort of direct from the free kick. I'm talking like corners and stuff like that. I thought we were going to be in real trouble with every set piece with Souček. But it turned out, like you said, it's individual mistakes instead of sort of the stuff we've seen all season, which is corners, set pieces, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's just, at the end of the day, I think if we go into that game, we're sat 6th or 7th on the table and we get beat 2-1, you say, well, these been beat by a team who are in 5th. They're in the latter stage of the European competition. They're a good side. They've developed really nicely over the last sort of 2 years, 2.5 years, whereas obviously we've, generally speaking, we've regressed. And you'd say fair play. We got beaten by a better team, but I think if we got a point, I think everyone could have been really too angry with that. Be at the bar with Charlton's had a good chance. We obviously scored our goal, and then build a play. I thought we were all right. I thought we looked okay, generally speaking, in different areas of the pitch, and it's just super frustrating because not only did you have the Van der Beek injury, you got Patterson pulling out with injury. It looked like he was going to start the game, and that's what fans have been crying out for. Whether we think Michael Keane's great, whether we think he's crap, it doesn't really matter. It's another body we've lost. We haven't got Delph in, we haven't got him in. We spent umpteen million, it feels like, on Gabam and Gomez and Delph in the same window, and none of those three are playing when we're desperately short of midfield reinforcements. It's a vicious combination of things that we're doing, which are really silly, getting sent off, giving away cheap goals, and then stuff that's just out of our hands. Cresswell not getting sent off right at the end, I think, kind of summed it up really, in terms of we're just not getting the rub of the green. And if we're going to stay up, we're seriously going to need to seriously going to need the rub of the green to do that. And obviously, I know we'll look at Wednesday a little bit, but that's going to be the game where you just think, if we need a slice of luck, please let it be them.
Yeah. Obviously, you mentioned midfield. You mentioned obviously Shaban Manu. From the last I heard, was doing all right as well in Russia. Mason Holgate obviously stepped in there for this game. It's not the first time we've seen him step into midfield. I think Duncan Ferguson was one of the ones that did it last time. What did you think of him in midfield?
I thought he was okay, but I just think it's a little bit old now, isn't it? I think when he went in centre mid, you thought either he plays here forever or this was a one-off, and it was a one-off, and then he played there again against Leicester in the Cup under Ferguson. I mean, it hasn't really been trialled since, and then obviously it's necessity. I like the fact that Lampard didn't just default to playing 5 defenders again. He's thought, I want to stick to this game plan, and I said it when we spoke with Callum, he's got to be brave, make brave decisions. I do think that was quite a brave decision, and I know it didn't pay off, but to a degree, I'd certainly applaud that, because he's made a decision, he's stuck with it. He wants to hopefully play with a fullback. He's put Mykolenko in there, which he hasn't been doing. He's going to put Patterson in there, and I think the international break looks like it's been good for us. And you just think, if we had the likes of Alan, Tony Van der Beek, Patterson all fit, this result could have been slightly different. But overall for Holgate, I thought he looked okay, but I'm just sick of players who come in, and I'm sure Mason Holgate cares, and he's one who plays who I think does care. There's a few others in there, obviously, but he's not good enough. And he's playing centre-back, right-back, centre midfield. He's the kind of player who kind of sums up everything that's gone wrong with Everton. Players who've stuck around for too long, haven't developed the way we needed them to. Players who other clubs are very sort of decisive about and get them out the door as soon as they can. I think Brighton was sniffing around the summer. We should have done everything to sort of cash in on him, because I just think players like him are, I'm not saying he's the reason why we're in this position, but he's one of many players who've put on the shirt for Everton, haven't been good enough, have played in an array of positions, like John Joe Kenny, including that as well, Alex Iwobi. It just hasn't worked out, and we need to give up the ghost on some of these players, and I do think he's one of them. But I thought he played okay on the weekend. It's like giving away the foul for the first goal kind of sums it up. As I say, we started off brightly, we looked all right, give away a stupid free kick against the team. We've got a really good set piece taker, and we got punished.
Yeah, and you've mentioned sort of Holgate, and then you mentioned obviously Iwobi. Again, like you said, I thought he had a good game. I saw some of his involvement stats were going around Twitter as well, which sort of backed up that he'd had an all right game up until the sort of fatal mistake, which I think will sort of overshadow however well the stats or he might have played, because it's such a howl of a mistake. But talk me through Iwobi, because he seems to, obviously Newcastle played well. Then he'll have a game where he's very hit and miss. So talk me through him, and then also talk me through the mistake as well. Do you think it's solely Iwobi, or do you think Michael Keane's somewhat to blame? Because I've seen a couple of people blaming Keane for the pass.
I think I've seen the replay a few times of the touch, and it's just a shocking touch. And it's not. I think Keane stepped out with the ball. He's played a simple pass into one of our better technical players. I don't think it should be an issue there. Iwobi's got to take that under control. If he's worried, pass it off to the fullback. Just do exactly what he hasn't done there. Why no one's gone and covered Keane? Again, how Kenny's not seen that, or Godfrey, or even Holgate. Someone's got to see that and say, "Oh, look, our centre half stepped in here. We need to step in and cover him." And I'm sure Lampard will be drilling that into them, because you can't play a pass 15 yards inside the opposition's half and have one ball through and have them through on goal. It's not good enough for me. It's all down to Iwobi, and it's the problem that this football club's had over the past sort of couple of years, because there's players in there who, after a few games, you say, "Oh wow, he looks good," and you're thinking, Michael Keane, I was tipping to be in the English squad not too long ago. Andre Gomez, who had 2 or 3 renaissances from him. Fabian Delph plays a few games, and you think, who's this lad that we signed years ago who's barely kicked a ball? Alex Iwobi's another one. John Joe Kenny against Leeds. Everton Football Club just got way too many inconsistent players who will put the shirt on, play well one week, see the plaudits they get, and then that's it. They're down tools, they don't care anymore. And Alex Iwobi's had his moment in the sun. He's still could be one of the heroes of the season in terms of someone who pulls out the mire when we kind of least expected him. We love an unlikely hero, the Madars and the Farrellies of this world, etc. But way too many inconsistent players in this Everton squad, and that is probably the major factor on the pitch why we haven't done well enough. Because again, I do think a lot of these players care. I do think players like Holgate and Kenny, they do genuinely care about Everton, but they're not good enough. And then they show they can be good enough, but they don't do it for anywhere near the amount of time to even make us a half decent footballing outfit. But yet they still get contracts, they still get played, they still get chances. We need to be cutthroat and just say, when we can, you're not good enough. You haven't been good enough for long enough. And I think someone like John Joe Kenny, if he were to get an extension in the summer, that would kind of prove to me that nothing's changed. If we let him go and just say, look, you've been a decent player for us, you've been all right, but you're just not good enough. And when you are good enough, you're not good enough for long enough. That's got to be the kind of message for me. So long as we stay up, we need to get out the players who are inconsistent, because they are a plague on this football club as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think obviously there was a poll a while ago, and in all fairness, we did put it out after the Leeds game, and it was a lot of fans saying, give John Joe Kenny an extension, and I think it was sort of sensationalism of him having a really good Leeds game. But I remember me and Owen saying, absolutely not, absolutely not.
Well, I think if he carried on that, because I look at that and I say, it's kind of water under the bridge. The fact that he's not been good enough, because he does care about Everton, so that's a big tick in my book in terms of someone who's going to play through the pain barrier, who's going to be there working hard every day and training. But it hasn't been good enough. And if he'd come back after that Leeds game and gone up to Southampton and played well, kept that form going I think he played okay against Man City, in fairness. If he kept on that sort of performance in more than just one game, then I'd say, sure, go and give him a contract. He's been good for a dozen games here now, and he's actually really helped us move up the table. But he hasn't done that. He's gotten sent off against Wolves with a stupid couple of challenges. He's been below average in pretty much every game he's played, other than that Leeds game when he was all right. I'm sure you saw a lot of that positive sort of feedback he was getting from after the game, and it's fair enough, and he fully deserved that sort of night to sort of bask in the glory, but he needed to go again, and he hasn't gone again. And I fully agree that we just simply can't give him an extension, because he's not proved to be good enough over a long enough period of time. Everton have just been soft underbellied for far too long when it comes to these sorts of players, the Connollies, the Penningtons, the Broadheads, there's so many of them. You've fallen through the cracks. Kenny's got into the first team, fair play, he's done okay, but far too inconsistent, and even when he's at his best, he's still pretty average. So definitely wouldn't be someone I'd give an extension to, I'm afraid.
No, I'm completely on the view of that as well, mate. I'm thinking this summer there's a couple of contracts up, so maybe it's the best, because obviously there are a few more players that probably need to leave, but it's a matter of someone's got to want them, which is the other big issue with Everton. What we deem as not good enough, someone else has got to deem as capable in their team. And at the minute, there's not many players that I don't want to go too harsh on them, but there's some that I wouldn't even say are Premier League standard. Or if they have that's not to say the Championship, but maybe their time in English football has come to an end. I'm thinking Andre Gomez could probably go somewhere else, maybe do a little bit better. But I think in terms of the Premier League, he's probably done, certainly at Everton. But you need to find somebody who wants to buy Andre Gomez. One of the players that did play, and it already added, you could see the instant sort of impact it had in terms of the expansiveness, was Mykolenko was back in the side. Just having a natural left footer playing out on that left hand side helped. I thought you could see already that it helps. Not that he had a stormer or anything, just the fact that it was a left footed player there helped a little bit. What did you think about his game? Obviously, he's having a tough time of it at the minute, but you think we've seen enough to say that he probably is he's definitely better than Kenny or the alternatives we've been sticking out there?
Yeah, I think, again, it's unfortunate for Lampard because we signed 2 players who weren't ready to come play Premier League football when we needed 2 players ready to play Premier League football. But he's just got to be brave and just say, look, we need a left footer. You make a mistake, you'll still get in the team. You'll still get a chance because we need you to come good, and I need to show some belief in these players because the likes of Patterson, Mikalenko, Dele, Donny van der Beek, and more Al Ghazi to a much lesser extent. These are the players who haven't let us down for years. These are the players who haven't had a chance to prove whether they are good enough or whether they are not good enough. I don't understand playing as someone like John Joe Kenny who won't be here beyond the summer unless we do something really silly like give him an extension. Why we would play him rather than trying to bed in Mikalenko. And I get it in terms of Lampard, obviously, prior to this weekend, certainly didn't particularly rate Mikalenko as a starting left back, but I don't rate Mikalenko as a left wing back. So, someone's got to budge and he's got to make a judgment call. And it looked like he was going to do that with Mikalenko and hopefully Patterson playing fullback. But I thought Mikalenko did all right. I thought he was okay. I don't think he's ever going to be a barnstorming modern day left back, but he's 22, 23. He's just come to a new country. He hadn't played a lot of football in terms of the winter break. Got all the stuff going on in Ukraine, which is just unbelievable. And I can't imagine how tough that is for him, etc., etc. But there's a lot of factors, and if we were 12th, 11th in the table and it was we moved Benitez on because he just wasn't doing good enough and Lampard had come in, I'm sure he would have played more games. But as I say, I think Lampard just got to say, look, Kenny, Coleman, Holgate to a lesser extent playing fullback, you're the lads who have let this club down, certainly over the last 18 months and some even sort of longer than that, in terms of just not being good enough, not performing well enough on the pitch while giving it the bigger than the media. These are the lads who come in, they're fresh blood, they want to work for Everton, they're fresh to the club, let's give them a chance. And I hope he sticks with them when it comes to Burnley, because it's going to be a tough game for us, coming against the likes of Weghorst and Ashley Barnes or Jay Rodriguez, whoever it is. It's going to be a tough game for him, and I hope it's a test he passes big style.
Yeah, obviously that is the next step is Burnley. Michael Keane not available. What do you think he's going to do in terms of, obviously, if Donny van der Beek's not back either, it leaves him with, obviously you alluded to it before, but it leaves him with a tough gap to fill now because he'll need to fill midfield and Michael Keane's absence. With reports that Yerry Mina I think the last I heard was he's in individual training, but we've seen with Benitez, Yerry Mina is not the type of player you want to rush back into the starting lineup.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's difficult for Lampard. I've been saying for the last few weeks, he can't bed players in. He's just had to throw players in whenever they've been fit or whenever they've been sort of, they can walk again. Pretty much that's what he's had to do because you've had injuries. We're now getting suspensions. It's a big worry for him because the centre of the park isn't good enough. And if Donny van der Beek's back, I really hope he can go straight back in. Obviously, Alan will still be suspended for the Burnley game and then for the one after, which is just utter lunacy. I can't believe we're missing Alan for not no reason at all, but for the grand scheme of things, we're very little. We're missing him now. I'm just praying Van der Beek's back because otherwise the centre midfield is going to be a car crash, I think, and I don't want to see Holgate in there again. I don't want to revert back to 5 defenders. Maybe Brady, put Isaac Price in. I don't know. I think Tyler Young is actually injured at the minute, is he not? Which is a little bit unfortunate because he might have got a chance, but just last someone like Isaac Price in. I would rather see him there, a 4 back of defenders, than see someone like Holgate or see a 5 back, or even someone like Andre Gomez, because I'm done with these players. I'm done with him. I'm done with Delph. I'm done with Kenny. I'm done with Keane. I'm done with Holgate. I'm done with so many of these players now. I'd just say get as many players in as we can who haven't let this club down for years, who aren't stained with a reputation of being shithouses, of being not good enough, of not caring enough. That's just all I want to see now, is the team who are, as you die as it sounds, I want to see a team that fights for Everton, that gives 100% for Everton, and isn't going to be talking in the media, and then within 25 minutes you're throwing a goal in your own net because you're simply not good enough.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. A couple of the comments coming in now. Erwin put that we should have sold Kenny around 2018 when his stock was high. I think that was when he was going out to. I think that was when he was at Schalke and he was like rookie of the month. I think he'd won rookie of the month. I think they call it, which it's yeah, I think the boat passed on that. But he also asked. He's removed it now. But do you think Frank Lampard's got what it takes to save us? From what we've seen,
It's really difficult to say. I think we're always talking about these home games as if they're like genie in the bottle, going to give us wins, and they're simply not going to give us wins in terms of we're not guaranteed, we're not owed anything by these home games. We can only perform as well as the other team, and even that might not be enough. It's the way it's gone for Lampard. I don't think anyone can say he's been dealt a good hand at all, because we wasted 30 odd million in the January window on two players who aren't good enough to start off right now, who could well come good, whether that's under Lampard or not. Obviously, that remains to be seen. But he's had that, he's had injuries, he's had suspensions, he's had all the stuff Usmanov, he's had all the stadium noise rumbling on in the background. He had the FA Cup game against Palace, which was obviously a disaster leading on to an international break. He's been dealt a really, really tough hand, and it's been super unfortunate for him. Has he got enough? I think as a man and I think as a manager, I do think he's got enough. But as I say, you can be as good as you want at anything. If the things that you're relying on to go in your favour don't happen, then it's massively worrying. Look, we won't go down because Alex Iwobi gave a ball away against West Ham. We won't go down because Alan got sent off for a bookable offence tackle or anything like that. We'll go down because we weren't good enough over 38 games, and that would be partly on Lampard. But I think I'd rather him in the dugout than Rafa Benitez. I think I definitely would say he's got more to give and is more likely to save us than Benitez ever was going to be. So I'm sure he's here for the fight. I'm sure he's hungry. And if he keeps making brave decisions, I think they'll pay off. So that's what I hope anyway.
Yeah, and one of the things we've been, a couple of us have been speaking about on the channel, I think it was me and James alluded to it last time, was his Lampard sort of, I'm going to say no nonsense, calling the players out, which is what fans sort of have been asking for, really. I think he called them out again. He said it's not the personnel, it's the spirit, the character of this group, didn't he? And he's alluded to it a couple more times about the group and the mentality of this football club and the players there, which is something fans equally have been saying about the team for, well, not just this season, the last couple of seasons. So it's nice to see him call it out. How do you feel about that, though? Because I know a couple of people are a little bit worried that this team aren't going to react very well from that type of love.
Yeah, I understand the point. What I would say is that Lampard sees them for 6 hours a day, every day, pretty much, and he'll know what makes them tick. He'll know some players from before he came to Everton. He'll have been told plenty from plenty of different people in the footballing sphere. He'll have his physios giving him comments. He'll have his first team coaches. He'll have all the help in the world to try and dissect what this squad's all about. And if he thinks that's the best way to get a reaction, then he's far better placed than you and I to say that. As far as I'm concerned, he'll know what makes these players tick. He will know who's going to stand up and be counted for. But at the end of the day, I've been torn to shreds playing Sunday League, and I've been absolutely destroyed by managers on many occasions. If I can handle it, then lads who are getting paid astronomical wages every week, they can handle it. It's a bit of tough love. It's a little bit of, can you be arsed to be here? It's about pride. Like, at the end of the day, if who's going to buy Andre Gomez now, as you alluded to earlier? No one. Andre Gomez goes and spend the next 12 games playing like the player we thought we were going to sign, or the player he was at Barcelona or Valencia or Benfica or whatever it might be. Then someone will chirp up and buy him. Players are that desperate to get out of here or to keep us up. They've just got to show it on the pitch. And I understand why people make that comment and make that suggestion, but I, for one, personally think players need to be motivated, and if you're not going to do it for Everton Football Club, you're not going to do it for Frank Lampard, you're not going to do it for Joe Edwards, Duncan Ferguson, whoever it might be, do it for yourself. That's all I can say. If you want to escape Everton, you want to get away from us, if you want to go earn more money somewhere else, you want to get a nice signing on fee, if you want to play in a slower league, in a less pressing environment, then the only way to do that for the likes of Gomez and for the likes of Keane, Kenny, Holgate, whoever it might be, Calvert-Lewin, I don't care, then you got to do it by performing on the pitch. Lampard, I know it makes the lads tick. I don't. So as far as I'm concerned, I back him in that regard, personally speaking.
Same, and I think to be honest, I was having this conversation with someone before. I think we've tried. You had Marco Silva, who was probably a bit too timid. Let the players sort of walk over a little bit. Then you had Ancelotti, that was. People say he's an arm round thing, but I think it was more the fact that because it's Ancelotti, there was a lot of respect there. He'd worked with the likes of Inzaghi, and you had players like Calvert-Lewin mention it, so he sort of demanded the respect because his CV demanded it. And then you had Benitez, who was apparently tough love. Players really didn't like him. I think we've tried all different ways, and comes down to, it doesn't matter if it's an arm over the players manager or a highly respectable manager or a tough love manager. It's sort of the common denominator in the end of the day is the players. And like you said, for pride, for just trying to get out the club if they don't like it, for whatever reason, they need to start really putting in the effort, because nobody, if you're not happy at the club, you're not going anywhere unless somebody puts in an offer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would say I go one step further. So the only common denominators have been the players and the board. I think they've been the two main consistent factors in our downfall. And we're talking about Ancelotti and working for the likes of Inzaghi and Seedorf and Pirlo and Kaka and whoever it may be. Frank Lampard's played for the likes of for Chelsea, for England, for Manchester City. He's got over 100 England caps. He's the top scoring player in Chelsea's history. He's the 7th or 8th most capped player in the history of England's national team. He's high scoring Premier midfielder. The accolades personally roll on and on and on. Never mind the fact that he's a multiple title and Champions League winning central midfield player. One of the best, if not the best, to ever do it. If you can't get motivated for him, if you can't get up for him, then it's one of them. But I think as well, in football now, I feel like we're moving away from this idea of, oh, I need to impress this manager because he's worked for the best, because he's proved it here, there. I think if someone comes in, they're personable and they're clear in their ideas, and if you get results under them, look at Graham Potter. He's gone from Östersund's semi-professional 4th division of Sweden to managing a team in the Premier League and having the likes of us, Tottenham, sniffing around him. And he's in terms of managers who are particularly cool and have got good background and have got high pedigree. This lad's got a master's degree in teamwork or something like that. Like it can't be much different to you and I in terms of the man. Like he's not got a CV or a playing career that makes you think, wow, I can't believe this. It shouldn't really matter by this point. And again, I understand the point, and I'd feel in a safer pair of hands if it was Allardyce or if it was Ancelotti. I'm sure I would, but Lampard's got to prove himself to be that manager. And in terms of people who want it the most, and again, I alluded to it earlier about how people who've been there, done that, let Everton down on numerous occasions. Lampard hasn't done that. He's come in the door very recently, and I want to give him a chance, and I want to back him. So, yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on that argument.
Yeah, just one more on the manager. Stinkputer, interesting name. But should we have appointed Pereira versus Lampard? Just real quick.
No, short answer, no. Yeah, exactly.
That could have been a car crash.
I've got nothing that makes you think. I'd rather have gone for Lampard every day of the week over Vitor Pereira. You got to remember the code was pretty bare in terms of manager we probably should have gone for, and that's because we appointed the wrong one in the summer. You're trying to appoint a manager in January. Managers are on sabbatical. They don't want to go back into football. They want to wait till the summer. They want to have a clean slate. They don't want to firefight. The manager want to come in, and the ones who are very ambitious, like Lampard, who's turned down other roles and has now taken one which he seems to feel like he suits best. And the ones who are desperate, the likes of Pereira. I mean, I don't believe he's gone anywhere since. He appears to be a manager of absolutely no stock. He's was only in the running because he had a relationship with Keir Trabzon and Bill Kenwright. Not any reason why he should be appointed Everton manager. So I've not lost any sleep over Vitor Pereira. He's not been in my mind frame since the day we found out he wasn't going to be appointed manager. Essentially, once he did that phone on Sky, that's when he was out of the running for me, and I've not given him a second's thought since.
No, same. I almost forgot he was doing with the job, to be fair. I also don't think, from what I'd read up on, he's quite a volatile man. I think he'd have probably quit by now, in all honesty. Like we're on about how Lampard looks like he's aged like an easily 10 years since his time at Everton. I was watching some of those Pereira clips of him yelling at fans. He'd have quit by now in a heartbeat, or been sacked for fighting with the Gladys Street. So there's no love lost there.
Maybe 10 years ago when he had some stock and he had some pedigree, and you heard of a manager who just won league titles in a decently sized European league. It was up and coming, not someone who's been to all the. Well, that's what we did with Benitez essentially, but someone who's been to all of the retirement stops, your Turkeys and your Chinas. Not someone like that, because I don't know if he's more or less washed up than Benitez, but he's in that same bracket. He's a nobody in football now, and yeah, I've got no interest in him personally speaking.
Same. Another player that's get back to the game. Another player who's sort of struggling slightly still, but it's all over social media today because GQ have decided to put their front page out. Is Dominic Calvert-Lewin again? Struggling. I mean, depends who you ask. I'm going to say he's struggling still from injury. I don't know. You might be on the side of he's had his head turned, sort of thing. Just give me your thoughts on Calvert-Lewin though, and the sort of lack of goals since he's returned.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a really tough season for him, and obviously we might not know the facts on this GQ thing. I think there's a line in it about the Crystal Palace game, which makes you think it took place after that game. Obviously, you don't know how it's been edited, whether it was going to go out after that game, and they thought we'll add in obviously this scoreline or whatever. I don't know. Well, I barely read into it, to be honest with you, but yeah, I do struggle a little bit with it because I do kind of think that he's been rushed back in. He got re-injured again. It must be a big struggle for him because of the kind of player that he is. That he's not had the chance really, and then when he has come back, he's coming to a really poor side. He's getting very little service. He's getting closer. I think a goal is coming for him, but it's just been such a stop-start season for him. It's not ideal. But I think what you would say is, I'll put on hold my media sort of personal life endorsements just for the time being because there's 6 weeks left of the season. And we've just gone and gotten beat, whether it's against Palace or whether it's against West Ham. It kind of feels like double for me because he's kind of gone and done that in and around the Palace game, and then it's been published after the West Ham game. It's not great PR. It's far from ideal, and I don't care what he wears. I don't care who he's doing it with. But if we were in mid-table, I'd say, all right, whatever, I don't care. But we're in such a dire situation now. It's in poor taste. It's quite tone deaf. But ultimately, we've got bigger fish to fry. Again, I'm not losing any sleep over it. It's just a bit tone deaf. But I think footballers are these days, aren't they? Like, it's kind of run-of-the-mill. Players don't really care. If Lampard's asked about it, I'm sure he'll mention it to him. In terms of he got his head turned, probably, yeah. But again, I'm struggling to care, to be honest with you, because I just think he's had one good season at Everton. Otherwise, he's looked all right. He's struggled massively since he's come back. Do struggle to see why Arsenal want him in truth in terms of, I know they want a big player who can run the channels and can give them a focal point, and I think they've been linked to Tammy Abraham, obviously a similar enough profile of player, but if we get 50, 55, 60 million for him, then we bite their hand off big style, and him and Richarlison and maybe one or two other players who are going to make us some money in a really, really bad situation. So out of the players who've got value in the team, he's the first one I'd say, yeah, that's fine, as long as you get a decent fee for him.
Yeah, firstly, I agree. Yeah, I think that summed it up perfectly. It's not like he's fobbing off training to go speak to GQ, but it does, the timing of the interviews taking place and the timing of the of GQ publishing it just come across as quite tone deaf. If fans are like in despair and worried about relegation and you're talking to GQ, it will rub people up the wrong way. In terms of Arsenal, I agree again. I struggle to believe that they didn't want him weren't going to stump up the money last summer coming off a hot season. But then I personally don't think they're going to stump up the 50 odd million this season just because he's not. I mean, I wouldn't buy him off this season alone. And football's quite reactionary. It's quite, imminent. Remembers, footballers, football teams, fans seem to remember the last season, not 2 seasons ago. And Tammy Abraham, from what I've heard, is having quite a good season out at Roma. So he's probably more of the hotter commodity in football at the minute. But you did mention, obviously, the other big player that will sort of make us money, which is Richarlison. Again, saw him coming under a bit of scrutiny. Obviously had a couple of chances. That one that he tries to hit it with the outside of his foot, and I'm not too sure why he doesn't just use his left because we know he's got one. Talk me through Richarlison and his sort of purple patch.
Yeah, I mean, I love Richarlison, and in terms of he really, really cares about Everton. I think he has been a genuinely really good player for us in terms of the last few years where the standards have been fairly low. He has been one of few players who I can sort of look back on some fondness with if he was to leave in the summer, but I can't really see him leaving in truth. But again, yesterday he's snatching at chances. I just think that he's another player who has just been far too inconsistent, but unlike some other players, he has got more credit in the bank because he has pulled out big moments for us. He has been that player. It's a bit easier when you're a forward player, but he has been playing a few different positions, a few different roles, a few different partners. It's not been an easy season for him either. Obviously, been a little bit more stop-start as well, and a massively long summer. Just gone. He's still playing for Brazil at every international. I think he definitely should have hit that with his left foot yesterday. As you mentioned, I was watching it back just before we came on, and you think if he does that, he's got an even better chance of scoring. But I don't really know what to say about Richarlison because I just think he's got that tick box if he cares about Everton. He'll play in any position. He'll go for the pain barrier. He doesn't really talk much in the media, I don't think, in terms of Everton. He doesn't really do many interviews. He doesn't really speak a great deal. He's not doing the sort of stuff we've been speaking about with Calvert-Lewin, for example. He's kind of, his head's kept down firmly. It's just maybe hasn't been quite good enough over the course of the season. I think that'll be relatively fair. But as I say, not to contradict myself, unlike some other players, he has got a bit more credit in the bank and he is a valued asset to us.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I think he's one of the ones that are just going to be a bit devastated when he goes. Probably more devastated when he goes than Calvert-Lewin, to be honest. If you ask me which one I'd rather lose this summer, I'd probably say Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of, as I say, what's going on in the media, how he's played this season, his level of availability, his versatility, the fact that he hit the ground running at Everton, he costs a lot of money, but if we can double our money on him, then you'd say, there you go, that's a decent deal. Whereas with Calvert-Lewin, the ceiling is a bit lower for it to be a good deal. We went for 30, 35 million. You have to say, well, we've turned a 30, 5 times profit on him or whatever, so it's difficult. I don't want to see either of them go. I do like both of them as players, but Richarlison's by far and away a better footballer as far as I'm concerned anyway.
I agree, mate. A couple of people here have been saying about Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and it leads on to what I was about to say. Erwin put about the service hasn't been good enough, and this is something that's been highlighted for the last couple of months. Especially, we lost a lot of creative players: James Rodriguez, Luca Dean to an extent, and even Gylfi Sigurdsson. To be fair, but all three of them were big. Passers of the ball, sort of creators, which I think we're seeing a lot in our style sometimes as well. It looks like we're just missing that killer ball, that killer pass. Do you think that's one of the main problems with us, as well as obviously Calvert-Lewin struggling with an injury most of the season and Richarlison having next to no break? Do you think it's just the fact they're not getting the delivery either?
I think it's definitely part of it. You can't lose the three players who've gotten you so many assists over the last few years. Obviously, Hammers aside, but last year he was still a big cog of our sort of creative machine. And whilst even last season we weren't exactly the most creative or the most sort of forthcoming team in the Premier League, that's 40-odd goal involvement that we've lost in one summer. And obviously, again, you talk about things that haven't gone our way and the hallmarks of teams who go down and all that sort of stuff. Your most expensive footballer getting done for something quite heinous, it seems, is just... I hate the phrase you couldn't write it, because you would write outlandish things if you had to write a script, but you wouldn't write that. It's unfathomable. It's practically never happened before in top level football. The fact that we're still in the dark on it nearly a year later is just utterly bizarre. Luca Dean scenario with the Halgazi stuff is a joke. Benitez aside as well. And then James, I mentioned James a few times. I think as soon as Ancelotti was gone, he was gone. Personally, as far as I'm concerned, we'll probably never know the truth, but he can talk all the sweet talk he wants whilst he's out there in Qatar where no one's going to watch him, and it's not a good quality of football, etc. He can whisper all those sweet nothings all he wants. It's not going to change anything. He's not going to come back to Everton. So that chapter's closed. It was a nice chapter. It's a shame we never could see him, but it was far from perfect. So if we just replaced James, I think we would have been all right, because Sigurdsson was hit and miss. Dean was obviously still at the club in the summer, and we went and replaced him with a player with a far different skill set. the creativity is massively lacking, as we say, and that's why, again, it's a brave decision to put Iwobi in that number 10 role, because he has got that creativity, and his stats yesterday were generally good. It just sums it up that a player has done all right and has been in a problem area of the pitch, goes and throws on the back of his net again, much like what Holgate did for the first goal in terms of giving away a stupid free kick. It's massively frustrating, but I've been banging the drum about the creativity all season. It's lacking massively. Even Donny van der Beek, I think, helps with it in terms of his movement and his runs in and around the penalty area. We're missing so many good players who can use the ball well, and we're playing players who simply haven't got that ability, which is a massive shame, and one of many puzzles Lampard's got to sort out.
Yeah, were you surprised not to see Dele Alli come on? By the way, bearing in mind he was playing the number 10, sort of the number 10 position was there. It's probably his favoured position. Were you a bit surprised not to see Dele Alli?
I mean, it's hard with Dele Alli because I feel sorry for him, because he comes to Everton and he hasn't had a chance. He's not had a kick, and I'm seeing Simon Jordan talking about him and Stephen Warnock talking about him today. Why are they talking about him? He wasn't even brought on, so why are they talking about him? Players, people who aren't, I'm not any interest in Everton. Someone like Stephen Warnock who's got an active dislike for Everton because he's a Liverpool fan. Why are these random fellas talking about him in the media? He's not done anything wrong. He's come to Everton, been given very little chances. He's playing in a team which can't quite accommodate him at the moment in time. They're not talking about Nathan Patterson. They're not talking about Matai Mikalenko. They're not talking about Anwar Al-Ghal. They're talking about Dele Alli because he's English, because there could be other reasons, which I probably won't say, but there's reasons for why he's probably being spoken of more than other people, and people seem to dislike Dele Alli because he outgrew Tottenham. I don't get it. Things just stopped working out for him. That's fine. That's natural. That happens in football. Spurs should have cashed in. They didn't. And now he's come to Everton and he's gone in a position where we just can't quite accommodate him. Is he that creative player anymore? I don't know. He's not your sort of number 10 of yesteryear, where it's players like Kaka and Isco and players who are, and Mesut Ozil, players who are solely creative and can get away with not running around loads. He was always a shadow striker. He was always playing off a front man. He was always a really intelligent footballer. But I don't know whether he's ever been that man to play the killer pass or play the killer ball. I'm not entirely sure, but again, I was speaking with Callum and Paul on there, and I just said that the Monday number 10 is gone. You've got to run. You've got to work hard. That's why Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva are so good, and that's why Isco and Philippe Coutinho and Mesut Ozil and maybe even Dele, maybe that's why they're phasing out, because they haven't got the legs, they haven't got the ability. They've got to reinvent themselves. Coutinho's been doing it at Villa since he's come back in, and Dele's got to do it now. But whether you can do that over 3 months when your confidence is sapped, I don't know. We'll see, but was I surprised not to see him come on? I would have liked to. I would have liked to see him do something. I don't know why he only made one change, but who knows? Maybe he'll get the run in against Burnley or against United. We'll have to wait and see. But I've just got a feeling he's going to pull out a moment for us this season, Dele Alli, and it'll make all this sort of interest around him kind of subside a little bit, and I'm sure he's sick to the back teeth of it as well. So again, like the players I've spoken of today, when he gets his chance, it's up to him to prove them wrong.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned the one change. I was going to ask you that. Were you shocked to see only one change? I guess in Lampard's defence, Michael Keane sort of getting sent off didn't help. There were attacking options on the bench. We had Ali, we had Dobbin, Rondon, and El Ghazi. Don't get me wrong, not a lot of them scream fantastic attacking options. Dele Alli, I would say, is probably the best of them. Obviously, Anthony Gordon as well, who we did see come on. But yeah, even with Michael Keane being sent off, and the situation we're in, were you surprised he didn't just chuck a couple more attacking players on?
Yeah, but again, maybe this is just one of his sort of brave decisions where he said, look, this is the team I want to go out with, and I don't want to change it unless I feel like I really have to. And who knows, with Calvert-Lewin have been playing a bit more and have been a bit fitter, maybe you would have thought, I want to stick with this 11 because it's going to be the 11 which I'm going to count on every week. This is the 11 we've worked the hardest in training, who've played the best, and I can only really count on Anthony Gordon. We don't know. So I was surprised to see him only make one change, but the cupboard's bare, isn't it? Even Andros Townsend getting injured for the rest of the season. Somehow I think he's still our top scorer, which is a damning indictment of this season, whatever way you look at it. But that's a player of an option, player who's got a good left foot, a player who's got Premier League experience, who can come on and produce a moment. And Mauro Ghazi can't produce a moment. I don't think Salman Rondon can produce a moment. Lewis Dobbin's untried, untested in the Premier League. Dele Alli hasn't done much for a very long time, so it's tricky for him. But overall, I was surprised to see only one change, and I think as fans, when you are getting beat, you want to see it happen. But on the flip side, when you get a man sent off, it's tricky. It's really hard because he's got to think damage limitation. Goal difference could be massive, and thankfully we've got one of the better ones down there. So we'll see what team he picks on Wednesday, and whether that tells us anything about whether that is going to be the team he wants to go forward with.
Would you stick with the same sort of formation layout that we saw this weekend?
Overall, I think, yeah, I said I want to go back to a 5-back. We haven't got the players for it. And again, he's just got to realise that it's not about, okay, let's just lash as many defenders as we can on the pitch and not concede. You need good balance. You need players who can play the system. You need players who've got qualities that others don't, and players who've got qualities that the other ones don't. It's complex, it's difficult, and you've seen with Chelsea, they went to a 4-back and they got absolutely spanked by Brentford on the weekend. They normally play a 5-back because they got the players who can do it. They got Thiago Silva in the middle, you don't want to get exposed. They got Rudiger, who's terrific on the ball, got a lot of pace, and they play whether it's Chalobah or Azpilicueta or Malang Sarr, whoever it might be, playing centre-back. They've got good balance, got versatility in that back line, and that's what we don't have. So I think got to go for broke now. Play a 4-back because we're not good enough defensively and we're not good enough offensively to try and accommodate it. I mention it every time we talk about this, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was panicking when he's going to get sacked by United. He played 5 defending to Liverpool, and he may as well put 10 there because they played the way they did. They got ran ragged because they weren't good enough. They can't play in that system, and he just fought again. I'll lash as many defenders on here as possible. Maybe we won't concede, and they went and got beat 5-0. I guarantee if he played a 4-back that day, the result would have been different. So that's kind of my feeling on a 5-back. And if he wants to play that, sure, we'll go get the players to do it in the summer, not now.
Yeah, I think, and it stems from last season. I think Everton fans are sort of growing very weary of seeing the 5-back formations. We've had the last 3 managers play them. Even when Ancelotti was trying to do it, I don't think it was to any real. It wasn't. We weren't playing it in the games that we think about fondly on his season. I'm thinking back to when Sheffield United beat us at home. I think that was a 5-back formation. We just don't have the personnel to create enough from it. One of the things I did notice and looked at the stats afterwards for the West Ham game is quite level on shots with them. 13 shots, only 2 on target though, no big chances. Sort of indicates that, I mean, we're creating, we're getting shots off, but a really poor standard of shots. And looking at it, there were a couple. Richarlison's was obviously, Holgate's header in the 94th was a good chance as well. We just seem to be, I don't know if it's a shot of confidence. I don't know if it's something a little bit more than that. We just seem to be really struggling to not just find that killer ball, but find that killer, finish.
Yeah, I mean, I think the XG stats again were pretty damning. I think we were over a goal behind West Ham in terms of that particular sort of metric. I think it was they had 1.98 XG. I think ours was something like 0.72, so I can't quite remember. But in terms of West Ham were creating some really decent chances, and the fact that they actually scored for a free kick, which is, I don't know what the XG on that was, but you'd imagine it's rather low. I know they had 2 really good chances for the goal, which obviously will boost those stats a little bit, but we're just not getting shots away from good enough areas because we haven't got a player who can get to that killer ball. And then Alex Iwobi's probably the most likely to do that, puts Calvert-Lewin through, and okay, it's on his left foot. It's not an easy chance, but he does okay, and obviously clips the top of the bar. We just need those to start going in, don't we? That's what we massively need, and I don't quite know what it is, but I just think when we played Leeds, we had so many shots. I think we had, I don't know, misquote, but I think it was in the 20s. I think it was 21 or 22 or something. And it's just, at the end of the day, if you had 22 shots off and goal, you're probably going to score at least once. And whereas the other games we played this season, we're having 3-4 shots. Under Lampard, our shot numbers have been terrible. Certainly in a sort of 3 or 4 game period prior to the international break, they were really, really bad, the shot numbers. And if you're not shooting, you're not scoring. As Michael Owen, as cliche as it sounds, that's what we need Everton to start doing. Getting the ball into decent areas, having shots, testing goalkeepers, worrying opposition. And I think we did that a bit more yesterday. That was a sort of semi-positive, if you want to call it that, from the weekend's game. And that's where okay, maybe that won't go in against 5th place West Ham, but it might go in against 12th place Leicester or wherever they are. It might go in against 18th place Watford. It might go in against 19th place Burnley, all those sorts of things. So hopefully that continues and we get better at that, because we need to get shots away, don't we?
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. I mean, like I said, I look at the stats, and until you look at the metrics of XG and you look at where the shots are taken from, the distances, on paper they look, 13 shots you allowed at Everton, it was looking neck and neck, and then you look at them and a lot of chances were blocked, which obviously is, good defending on West Ham side, but a lot of them were just unlucky, a couple of skims of the bar, and then some were just, players hitting it for the sake of get your shot off. Sort of must have heard the shout from the crowd esque movement. The other one I noticed is accurate crosses, sort of long balls. Obviously, I don't think Lampard wants to continue with the sort of style of play, if you can call it that, we saw from Rafa Benitez of pump it up long. I don't think that's what he wants to do long term. I think he's trying to figure out what works best with the team, on an immediate basis, while also trying to implement. But 17% accurate crosses. Bear in mind, you've got focal points such as Calvert-Lewin. I personally would like to see a little bit better quality in those crosses. I guess that's, again, what it likes to do with the killer ball. But when you've got such a focal point up front, if you're not putting in the delivery, it sort of seems a waste to have him there.
Well, massively. We've not had a player who can cross a ball particularly well for what feels like a little while. Even Luca Dean, when I know whether you get loads of assists or not isn't particularly indicative of how good a crosser you are on the ball. I don't know what his crossing stats actually were, but it doesn't feel like we've had a reliable crosser of a ball for a little while now, in terms of at least being consistent enough with it. And you got two brilliant headers of the ball, Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, who needs to utilise them more, and we need to play to their strengths more when we're going forward. And that's where players like Van der Beek, Alan, Deliby get a chance, Iwobi playing centrally, and they're the kind of players who are going to find these lads and are going to get them more chances. That's what I'm hoping for. But again, the crossing stats, again, as we mentioned this season, our lack of goals scored and conceded from corners is a real worry, and this is a big reason why. Andy Gordon's got good delivery on him, but obviously he didn't play on the weekend. That's obviously hindered us again there. But yeah, if you want to play two big players who are good in the air and have got a good leap on them, you've got to get the ball into them. Again, it sounds simple, but we haven't done the simple stuff this season, have we?
No. You mentioned Anthony Gordon. A couple of people were a little bit shocked to see him dropped. Were you shocked to see him drop, or do you think it's just a matter of resting him because he's played a lot of football this season?
Yeah, possibly. Whether he just thinks that he wants to freshen up a little bit, whether he thinks teams have maybe found him out a little bit and wants to just give him a bit of a rest, or game plan, he doesn't quite think he's quite suited to play against a certain type of fullback. It could be loads of reasons. Whilst I was disappointed to see him on the bench, I think at least the fact that we've got some decent players to come in is a relief, because we have got the likes of Damari Graham, Richarlison, and Alex Iwobi can also go into those central and wide areas. But when you're in a dogfight, you want to see some of the better players playing, and Andy Gordon has been perhaps our best outfield player this season, I'd say. So I was surprised, but yeah, we'll see on Wednesday maybe how long that's going to take place for, because Frank Lampard clearly likes him a lot. I've suggested probably just tactical or resting rather than anything else, and say Wednesday will obviously tell us more.
We've mentioned it a couple of earlier on, but I just thought we'd get to it now. Michael Keane is the captaincy to then go get a red card. Is he one for you that, like people are saying last year under Ancelotti behind closed doors, he had a bit of a renaissance? Is he one for you that it's probably his time's done, sort of, that's it now, curtain closer?
Yeah, definitely. I think if him and Harry Maguire played for Burnley, they'd make Europe every season, because they head the ball away from their own box. They are two of the best penalty box defenders. In terms of the ball being in the air, at least. Obviously, they're both prone to making some mistakes, but in terms of getting the head on everything, getting the body in the way, they are two of the best centre-backs in the division for that. But they're both playing systems, and for clubs who aren't going to let them just sit on the edge of the box, aren't just going to let it hoof the ball away. And let them head everything. It's not going to happen. You know, that's why he was so good last season for large parts, because Ancelotti was able to do that, play behind closed doors, etc., etc. But getting sent off, it's unforgivable. It's unforgivable for an experienced player who's got England caps, who's played for Manchester United, who's played for Everton, who's played in Europe, etc., etc., etc. He's done all these things and he's still diving and making silly, daft challenges, and they just don't help themselves. These players on so many occasions, they don't help themselves. Whether it's Calvert-Lewin with his GQ stuff, whether it's Iwobi throwing one on his own net, whether it's Mason Holgate and just overall just not being good enough, or same with John Joe Kenny. A lot of these players don't help themselves, and I think Michael Keane's just another one of them, because whilst I feel bad for him in terms of he clearly struggles with the mental side of the game a little bit, I think it'd be fair to say, if you get sent off, then you're gonna get some pelters on you. As much as you don't want to see players getting shouted at and getting, not abused obviously, but getting pelters is probably the best way to put it. As much as you don't want to see players getting that, if you're going to wear the captain's armband for Everton, the one thing you can't do is get sent off and let the team down, because it killed us. We were never getting back into that game. We were actually playing all right up until the moment he got sent off. So players like him and Kenny have let us down in the past few weeks, and they're still getting chances. I'm not sure they'll get many more.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is my final one on, obviously, the West Ham game coming up. Just give me a sort of the players that impressed you.
I'd say overall, Iwobi was all right, but again, you're talking about a player who's played quite well, and then he's given the ball away massively. I think Pickford made a good save for the Antonio goal, and he's been let down because no one's quick enough to follow it in. Otherwise, I just thought most players were just all right, and on another day, we should have got a point from that game. I don't want to say here and lambast these players too much for that particular performance, but it's so frustrating to see us start games well, have really good moments and spells in games, certainly at the start of matches, and just crumble massively, especially away from home, because we've got to win at least one away game, and it doesn't look like we can play till midnight in all these games, and we're not going to win them, it feels like, at the minute.
Yeah, I agree, man, and I know a lot of people have said that as well about Iwobi, that up until then, he had a really, really good game for us. That is everything now I think we've got time for. I'd just like to thank James for coming on and speaking to me. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Anytime. Hopefully
no worries. Don't forget, guys, to like the stream as well. The ones that are watching on YouTube later on, you can also like the video. Comment down below your thoughts on the West Ham game and the inevitable of Everton's season. Don't forget, you can check out James and the Babbling Blues as well. The link will be in the description for the video. And most importantly, guys, stay safe.